Hey, Solid Gamers! Welcome to my very first video game review. I am Solid Rob. I'm reviewing Returnal on PlayStation 5. It's a PlayStation 5 exclusive game. It's made by a smaller studio, Housemarque, and this is their very first AAA game. So I have been playing the hell out of this game. I've played around 70 hours. I've achieved all the trophies, and I've defeated the final boss probably like 10 times. With that out of the way, let's jump to story. So we're playing as Celine, a space explorer who crash lands on an alien planet called Astropos. The planet is already inhabited by another species, referred to as the Sentients. And so far we don't know anything about the game or what is going on. The same goes for Celine, so you find out more and more as you go, and little tiny bits and pieces are being revealed bit by bit, so we get a greater understanding of what is going on, but at the same time it also raises more questions, so it just gets us more confused. And I personally love that mysterious way of storytelling, and it kept me intrigued throughout the game. I just wanted to know more. A lot of the story is being told through this house sequence. So there's a house, a 20th century house that appears to be Celine's house from Earth. There's also a lot of story that's being revealed as we die, where we're getting these flashbacks. And also there are audio logs in the game, and that also tells a lot about the story. And then Celine also reacts to those audio logs that you find, and has a little story to tell about that too. This is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not really going to touch much on the story anymore, except that it leaves you pretty confused up until the very end. So the game's got two different endings, and it's the second one you really want to get to. There's a certain requirement to reach the secret ending. You have to collect these 6 pieces, which are scattered throughout the world. So the game has got 6 different worlds, or as they call it, biomes. And there's a fragment in each of those biomes. And every biome also has its own boss fight, and they can be very different from one another. There's one boss in particular that is one of the coolest boss battles I've ever faced. So next up, let's talk about the gameplay. Now this is a roguelike game, which means if you die, you're being sent back to the very beginning of the game. So you're going to be spawning at the ship again, where you first start out the game, and you lose pretty much all your progress. There's some permanent equipment that you get to keep, and you can't lose it. So like the sword or the grappling hook, or the ability to be underwater. So it can be really, really punishing. But to me, this is where the game really shines, because it keeps you on your toes all the time. And it's this excitement that I love so much, is the fear of dying. Let's say you've got a really good run, and you're five hours into the game, and then there's a really tough fight, and you're pretty close to dying, and it just gets your heart racing so bad, and you're getting so filled with adrenaline, and it makes you feel so alive and so on edge. I just found myself sitting at the edge of my seat so many times, and this is just part of the thrill. I've never really played any roguelike games before. This is my very first, and I love that they're sticking, to their vision, that they still haven't changed it. There was a lot of complaints about the game. The fact that it is a roguelike game, and there's no save function. So if you got a long run and you want to just, you need to go to bed, you're gonna turn off the, you want to turn off the console, and you just simply can't, because there is no save function to the game. So what you have to do then is you gotta leave the console on, or leave it in rest mode, which is not very convenient for sure, but that's the way it's supposed to be, and that's also the way I like it. I love the fact that they did it like this, because I love a challenge when I play video games. Usually I play every game I can on the hardest difficulty, if the option is there. And I've been a gamer since the 90s, so the games were just way, way more difficult back then. So I absolutely love it that there's a game like this, and it's the same for everyone. Sure, it's not going to speak to everyone. You have to be a pretty decent gamer in order to finish the game. You have to have pretty good reaction time. You got to be quick and good with aiming. There's also a lot of things to just focus on all the time. The environment, all the enemies, just everything that is going on screen. Like, you have to dodge the enemy projectiles, and there are so many coming from all different angles. And then you gotta run around. You gotta shoot at the same time. there's so many things you gotta do at the same time. And you constantly gotta be on the move, so it's super fast paced. I gotta touch on the loot system, which is a big lottery. So Returnal is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. So every run is gonna be vastly different from one another. So each time you die, or start up the game, starting a new cycle, the environment is changing all the time. You can get different enemy types in different biomes. And you never know what weapons you're gonna get. You never know what items you're gonna find, what artifacts and parasite and malignant item. All of these things has got a huge impact on the status and Celine's statistics and how strong she is. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about how that works. So let's take a parasite for example. You attach a parasite to your body. It's gonna have a positive effect and it's gonna have a negative effect. So let's say the positive effect is gonna be it gives you 10% extra weapon damage. And the negative effect might be taking fall damage. So then when there is a big drop, you have to make sure you dash before you land so you don't take damage from the fall. Well, let's say that the positive effect is going to be it's going to give you a bigger health bar, and the negative might be that the enemies are going to leave a pool of acid upon their death. So if you step in that, you're going to take damage. So you always have to be very mindful of what you pick up and whether it's worth it or not, if the positive outweighs the negative. And the goal of this game is really not to get hit, because there's an adrenaline level. So let's say you reach level 5 of adrenaline level. That means the enemies are going to drop 50% more obolites. So every time you kill an enemy, they're going to drop obolites, and you want to make sure you pick that up. And it's this that you can purchase equipment and upgrades with. And then we have the malignant items. So they're always going to have a positive effect that will somehow increase your stats. But there's a small risk that you might get a malfunction upon picking it up. So it might be a moderate chance of getting a malfunction, or it can be very high. Sometimes by picking those malignant items up, it can boost your stats greatly, but it can also be at the cost of a malfunction. A malfunction that might be terrible, or a malfunction that might be very, very easy. So let's say a malfunction might be you're unable to pick up guns or health items. But then you also get a requirement fix for that, so it might be kill 10 enemies, and then the malfunction goes away. Some requirements are harder than others, and the malfunctions can vary a lot. So it just changes the entire gameplay. Like I said, every run is going to be so vastly different to the other. So the game is never really the same. It doesn't get repetitive. It keeps changing. The environments keep changing. The enemies keep changing. You get different weapons. You level up the weapons. You unlock new things. You unlock new alt fires, and the guns also change. The more you level them up, so there's like a proficiency level to the guns. So there's just a lot of depth to the game, and this is what I love so much. It's always fresh, and you never really know what you're gonna get. The game has got a pretty steep learning curve. It's going to be pretty overwhelming in the beginning, but then once you actually toy around with everything, you experiment, you read about all the things that you can pick up and how it's going to affect your stats. Like once you get an understanding of just how everything works, it becomes so much easier. And honestly, the game is not as hard as you might have heard. It's just that it takes some time to get into, to figure it all out, and to understand it. And you just got to be very mindful of all the things that you pick up. And the game really requires your respect and attention and your full focus. So most of my deaths was actually due to something that I picked up. Either it was a weapon that really wasn't suitable in that specific biome I was in, or because of a terrible malfunction. And sometimes just the environment. So you always got to mind your step. You might fall down into a hole or fall down a cliff in the middle of the action. So let's touch on graphics and sound. So the graphics, I think they're actually stunning. The game is so enriched with detail and colors. Sure, it may not be the best looking game out there, but this game is not really all about the graphics, it's about the gameplay and the quickness. So that brings us to frame rate. So this game is running at 60 frames per second, which is fantastic. It runs so smooth. And I'm much happier that they might have tone down the graphics a little bit instead of going for even better graphics and then having the game locked to 30 frames per second, because this game would not be playable 30 FPS. It would be absolutely horrible. It would ruin the game. It would ruin the experience entirely. So I'm super happy that they went in this direction. And loading times are non-existent in this game, which is incredible. I guess it's thanks to the PlayStation 5's SSD. And on to sound. So if you got a good speaker set or a solid headset, then you're in for a real treat. Just everything, all the little details, and you become so immersed a lot, thanks to the sound, the 3D sound. I used the Sony 3D Pulse headset, and whew, that was just incredible. And the music. The music composer did an incredible job. So like it just fits the game so perfectly, and the atmosphere. It enriches the atmosphere so much, the entire experience. You become so immersed. Let's touch on the controller and how it utilizes the haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. So it's almost on the same level as with Astro's Playroom. Like you can feel the raindrops hitting the spacesuit of Celine. Wow, and the guns, how they feel, and just all the rumbling, and then also the adaptive triggers. So to fire the gun, just a normal fire, you just press down R2 like halfway, and then to use the alt fire mode, you press it down fully, and like you feel so much resistance in the controller, and also while you fire, you feel all the rumbling too. There's just so much power in that. And honestly, in the beginning, when I was reading about this before I played the game, I didn't like the sound of it too much. I thought it was it felt like it could be something annoying, but then when I actually got the game and played it for myself, it changed my mind entirely, and it just works. It works so well. And the control in general is just top notch. Like everything, you can just control Celine exactly the way you want to. You can choose like how far you want to dash or how far you want to jump, depending on how long you press that button. And it's super responsive. It's like she is gonna do exactly what you want her to do. So when you die, you can never blame the controls for it. So it's perfection. So let's get to my final verdict and rating of the game. So would I recommend this game? Absolutely. Do I think it's worth full price? Hell yes. Is it a game for everyone? Probably not. I think if you're not very good at shooters and keeping track of a lot of things at the same time, and maybe your reflexes aren't that great, then you might want to stay clear from it, because it's a tough game. But I think if you're at least a decent gamer, you should definitely get this game. It's gonna be tough in the beginning, it's everything is gonna get so much easier once you fully understand it. And when you're into like so many hours into the game like I am right now, I can finish the game in maybe 3 hours, all of it. So it's not really a very long game once you have everything unlocked, but that's not a bad thing. The game is still so rich with content, and the replayability is super high, and it never really gets repetitive, because every run, like I said previously, every run changes so drastically from the other. They're never going to be the same. It's always going to be something different, a different outcome. Every encounter, it's even if you do a similar encounter twice, the outcome is still going to be very different. The game is going to play very differently depending on what weapon you have, and what parasites, and what malignant items, and just your stats, everything, what artifacts you're having too. It's going to change so much, so it never gets boring. I was never bored of it. I could keep on playing. I could keep playing on further now, even though I'm 70 hours in the game. But as of right now, me having unlocked pretty much everything there is to unlock in the game, and I've also achieved all the trophies. So it's not something I'm gonna be playing frequently, but I'm saving the game, and it's something I want to show to my friends. It's a hell of a showcase. It really shows the power of the PlayStation 5, and also the power of the DualSense. So to me, it's just an absolute masterpiece, and my rating is a solid 9 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is the fact that the game had some issues at launch. The game was crashing on people. It crashed on me twice, and the first time it crashed, that was after I've been playing the game for 4 hours. It crashed, and I just decided to put it away for a little while and just await for some patches and fixes to that. But that has been fixed with patches now, and it's a non-existent issue. But it was a serious issue, and it shouldn't have been there to begin with. It is unacceptable for a roguelike game like this one to have that. But it needs to be addressed, and it's the only reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10. But even still, to me, this is the game of the year 2021 so far. And I have played all the other PlayStation exclusive games. I have played Demon's Souls, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Sackboy, and Astro's Playroom. But this one is just so unique, and I absolutely love it. So thank you, Housemarque, for making such an incredible game. And big thanks to Sony for acquiring them as a first-party studio. So I'm really curious to see, what they are going to bring next. Thanks a lot for watching this video. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. I will have more reviews out in the future. Take care and stay solid.